Skater of the century, according to one of Skate magazine, Steve Caballero, also known as Cab, grew up in Northern California, a typical kid.
But after being caught with a stolen calculator from the school, the 70s size calculator, he needed to prove to his probation officer he could stay out of trouble. Skateboarding was his remedy. His natural daredevil skill caught the attention of the right person, turning into an invitation from pro skater Stacy Peralta to join a competitive traveling team. His life would never be the same.
I'm the youngest of five, older brother, older sister, and then two older brothers. None of them skated. I just kind of remember growing up at a young age that my mother and my father would argue a lot. You know, I would find my dad sleeping on the couch a lot, and then one day when I was 11 years old, he left. And it was hard. It was just me and my mother. My older brothers and siblings, they had moved out, and so I just kind of was there by myself with my mother. And but you know, I had a lot of friends in my neighborhood, and we used to hang out. And you know, when you're like young and you have a lot of neighborhood friends, you know, you kind of pass the time away. You know, so I was pretty much on the streets a lot. You know, whether it was in school, I'd be hanging out on the streets, and I'd come back at night. You know, and riding my skateboard, riding bikes. You know, going to stores, stealing things. You know. We'd have like gang fights at our schools, the blacks against the Mexicans. It was pretty gnarly neighborhood, you know. And but when I discovered skateboarding, it kind of took me away from the neighborhood and took me to the other side of the city, which was Campbell, and they had skateboard parks there, and that's where I kind of started hanging out. And at that time, I was on probation, because a couple of my friends went into a school, and we saw one of the windows open, and we went in there curious and stole a couple things. And I hid it in the backyard, and I remember getting a call into the office in junior high saying, hey, you know, we heard that you went into the school and took stuff. And so we had to confess, and I had to give back this calculator, which back in the day, calculators were this big. So I was carrying this huge thing down the street. Yeah. We confessed that we went in there and got put on a probation for like 6 months of, you know, making sure that you didn't do anything for a whole 6 months, or you would end up going to juvenile hall. So it really scared me. And that's the time that I really discovered skating. And that's the time when I was really eager to tell my probation officer, who would visit us at the school. And I remember really fondly that I told him that he's like, what did you do over the summer? You know, I'm like, well, I discovered skateboarding, and I'm really into it, and that's what I choose to do. You know, I want to skateboard all the time. We just make stuff up, you know. We'd try to see who could slide on their tail the longest down the corridor, or push as fast as you can and fling your board as hard as you can and see how far you can send it out, or go down the driveway and see if you can make it around the turn without your ball bearings falling out of the wheels, because we didn't have cased bearings back then in the 70s. You know, I was on a plastic board that I made the kicktail myself by putting it on the stove, heating it up, and forming a kicktail because it was flat, you know. Grip tape, I went to the hardware store and bought the little sticky stuff they put on steps so you don't slip, to put it as grip tape. So I really didn't know much about skateboarding, skateboard parks. I didn't know what it was, you know, about. You know, and then I remember I came down with my dad, because my dad would come in and out of my life. He didn't live at home, but he was always there for me if I needed something. And one year in 1976, he took me to my first skateboard park, which was across the street, over here, across the street from Disneyland in Orange County. And it was called the Concrete Wave. And it had bowls like this, had snake runs. It was the first time I was able to ever experience skateboarding on transition with cement, and I just fell in love with it. Meeting Stacy Peralta, who was partners with George Peralta, who formed Powell Peralta, the company. And I met him down in Escondido. Once again, I drove down to Southern California, entered a contest, got 5th place. Stacy was one of the judges. He came up to me and he said, "Hey, I like your style. I like how determined and focused you are. I see a lot in you. I want you to be part of this team that we're forming." And I started traveling down from San Jose down to Southern California almost every month. My first trips were taking a bus. My dad would drive me to the bus station in San Jose at like midnight, and I wouldn't get to Santa Barbara until about 6:30 in the morning, and then switch buses and then get to Santa Monica about 8:30, meet up with Stacy, and then we would just travel around Southern California to all the skateboard parks, just like we are here today, for photo shoots and maybe practicing for contests. I wish my dad was supportive in some ways, but he was supportive in ways that I needed him as well. He'd bring me to the skateboard park. If I ever needed a ride to the airport or get picked up from the airport, he was one phone call away, you know. And the one thing that sticks in my heart the most about my dad that I passed down to my kids is he never put a lot of pressure on me, and he always just was accepted me for who I was, and he was never like if I didn't do well in a contest or something, he would just ask me, "Hey, did you have fun? Did you enjoy yourself? If you did, okay, well, that's all that matters." If I was dating a girl, "Hey, do you like this girl?" "Yes." "Oh, I like her too." You know, so he never judged. He never judged me, and that's what I loved about him, that he accepted me for, you know, and that goes a long way, you know, and it's something that I pass down to my kids as well.